Hello everyone, my name is Mindy Gower and this is my Module 13 for EDL 851, Supervision and Evaluation of School Personnel. Throughout this video and Google Slide presentation, I will be walking you through the case study, A Good Teacher Turns Bad. First, I want to start you all off with a summary about this case study. A previously named Teacher of the Year at Crestview Elementary School has gone downhill this school year. What seems to be caused by personal issues, this teacher at hand has become stressed, unfriendly, and argumentative. Just recently, the principal at this school has been receiving multiple complaints about this teacher. So let's go ahead and get started with what we know. Category 1, Problem Identification and Analysis. What do I know? Based on the information gathered, I know that Mrs. Wilson is the principal at Crestview Elementary School, and she has been for the past 3 years. I know that Mrs. Horton is the first grade teacher at Crestview Elementary School. She was previously named the former Teacher of the Year, so with that being said, she is well respected and established. However, Mrs. Wilson has just begun to notice a change in Mrs. Horton. Mrs. Horton has seemed stressed and isn't working effectively with other teachers. Just recently, Mrs. Wilson began receiving multiple complaints about Mrs. Horton and from parents. A parent of a first grader in Mrs. Horton's class, Mr. Stafford, came to the school demanding Mrs. Wilson for a conference. Mrs. Wilson went ahead and arranged a parent-teacher conference where Mrs. Wilson was actually in the conference with them. And during this conference, Mr. Stafford was making accusations about Mrs. Horton's behavior, and Mrs. Horton did not like those accusations and acted very unprofessional. What do I need to know? Now that I have identified what I know about the case, I need to explain what I need to know in order to solve the case. Does Mrs. Horton have any paras or support staff? If she does, can the paras or the support staff either explain what is actually going on in the classroom or actually agree with Mr. Stafford in this situation? I need to know Mrs. Horton's teaching history. Has something like this happened before? I need to know if Mrs. Horton has experienced a life-changing event. If so, I need to figure out ways to support her. And I also need to know the school district's protocol for suspending or firing teachers. In this case, I don't think that firing is the right way to go about the situation, but I still believe that a one-day suspension might be in the cards. Identify the problem. The problem at hand is that Mrs. Horton's recent behavior is having a negative effect on her first grade students and their parents. Multiple complaints have been brought to Mrs. Wilson's attention, and when Mrs. Wilson acted on the situation and arranged for a parent-teacher conference, Mrs. Horton acted unprofessional, and she acted unprofessional when the accusations were made against her. Category 2, Proposed Plan of Action. Now I have my plan of action. My plan of action describes exactly how I will tackle this problem. First and foremost, I will use the school policy to guide every single action. I am the school leader and I must act ethically and professionally. That is why I will follow the school policies. Second, I am going to have a talk with Mrs. Horton to let her explain what is going on, help her get to the bottom of this. I do not want to accuse her of anything, but I do want her to know that I am there to support her. In a non-threatening way, I would ask Mrs. Horton what is going on, and if she's honest about it, then we are going to start a plan of improvement. I'm also going to decide whether she needs a plan of improvement or a one-day suspension after talking to the school superintendent. He will help me make that decision. If we go with the plan of improvement, then I will obviously help and support Mrs. Horton with that plan of improvement. I will also make sure that I am present in Mrs. Horton's classroom throughout evaluations, observations, and walkthroughs. My plan of action regarding this case promotes what is best for all students because it puts students and their learning and their success as a top priority. When there are concerns being communicated regarding a teacher and their behavior from parents, it is the role of a principal, it is the role of a school leader to take these concerns seriously. And in this case, I did, and I acted upon them. Instead of brushing the reports off, I, as the building leader, made the decision to confront Mrs. Horton. I also made sure that I communicated with Mr. Stafford, the parent. I respected everyone that is involved, and I let everyone be heard. I am also going to assist Mrs. Horton in the classroom. If she needs support, then I'm going to give her that support. Obviously something is going wrong in her life to make her act out this way. Category 4, debrief the problem. What was I thinking, feeling, and valuing? I was thinking that Mrs. Horton needs support. She wouldn't be named a former Teacher of the Year for nothing. Obviously, she knows what she is doing, and something is going on in her personal life to make her act this way. I was also thinking that Mrs. Horton needs the opportunity to share her feelings with me. If I make sure that there is an open line of communication between me and her, then I know that she knows that I will always be there to support her no matter the situation. I was also thinking that Mrs. Horton owes Mr. Stafford, the parent of a first grader in her class, an apology. I was feeling compelled to take action. I know that this situation wouldn't have happened if Mrs. Horton and I were maybe a little bit more, if we communicated a little bit more when this happened, but it happened, and so now I need to take charge with it. I was feeling sorry for Mrs. Horton and her situation, and I was obviously feeling sorry that the students were experiencing the behavior in the class. I was valuing my students and their learning and their success. I was valuing the relationships with my students' families, and I was valuing the relationships that we have with the community. There are obviously some unresolved issues. What are the rules for suspending/firing a teacher? I need to know the district policies. Mrs. Horton may open up about her behavior, and then we might not have to suspend her. Maybe we could just go ahead with a plan of improvement. But another unresolved issue at hand could be the parents may be unhappy with the plan that is put in place. Maybe I go ahead and call Mr. Stafford and tell him that his daughter isn't going to be removed from the classroom if that's what I think is best, and he may not be happy with that. So that would be the next step that I would have to take. Category 5, Component 1. How do you as a school leader promote effective and efficient management of the school or the district? I make sure that voices and perspectives are heard, seen, and addressed. Frequent walkthroughs will be happening and will be conducted in Mrs. Horton's classroom. I will make sure that Mrs. Horton has a healthy well-being, and I want to make sure that she always knows that I'm going to support her, and I'm going to make sure that professional development opportunities are available for each one of my staff members. Component 2. How do you as a school leader promote the social learning of every student? I do this by making sure that we have a positive school environment, having open lines of communication, and if I need to, and if it gets this bad, if the behavior continues, then the teacher will be removed. Component 3. How do I as a school leader emphasize instructional capacity? I do this by providing professional development opportunities, completing and conducting evaluations, observations, and walkthroughs, making sure that I support my teachers and my students in the classroom, and helping my staff support themselves. Well-being is very, very important. That is my case study for A Good Teacher Turns Bad. I hope that you all enjoyed. Thank you.